Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. We're starting the third chapter today. Excited. So, what does anybody remember from the second chapter? Or did you forget already? Laura, do you remember anything? Not really. Okay. Anyone volunteer anything that you remembered from the second chapter? Alright, so we'll put you on the hot seat. Oh, Ashay's going to go. Good one.
I remember an analogy that you made about turtle.
Oh, the tortoise, yeah. That's right. Yeah. Good. He withdrew his senses within his shell.
Yeah.
And then only when he wanted to, then he came out and used them. So devotees like that, he's when this, when it's not favourable for Krishna consciousness and there's a predominance of, the different modes, then at that point, he'll withdraw his senses and meditate more within, you could say. And then when it's time to perform service, then he uses all his senses very clearly in Krishna consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Good. That's good. That's very good. Go back to Surumi.
The devotional service is the key to everything.
Okay, that's pretty general now.
It would get rid of good and bad reactions.
Okay, yeah, good, yeah, because that's coming up again today, actually. Yeah, both good and bad reactions. That's right. Yeah. Let's see. I just want to see. Continue doing it since. Always remain free from my own. Yeah. And good. It's in chapter 9 here. It's in one of the main verses in this is that both good and evil have their reaction, and any reaction binds the performer. Even if he's doing good, he's going to be bound by the laws of karma. So okay, I'll just ask for one more. Anybody else? Just anything else you remember? Yeah.
At the start, they talked a lot about the soul being indestructible.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good one. There's about, I think there's something like 8 or 10 verses which talk about the soul like that. Indestructible, immovable. I'm trying to remember the Sanskrit of it. I'm just coming to it here now. To be indestructible, no one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. What else is there? The soul can never be cut to pieces. Prabhupada all often use this Nainam Chindanti Sastrani, Nainam Dahati Purvaka, Nachainam Klete Yanchapa, Nasho Shakti Martita. That's very powerful. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapons, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Yeah, there's all these different descriptions of the soul. It's unbreakable, insoluble, can neither be burned nor dried, everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So yeah, that was a good thing to remember. Any last thing?
I just say in my own word, how Krishna was convincing Arjuna, like, to go for the fight. Like, he should not be looking at the families,
Yes.
And also like since Arjuna was a great warrior, so he has to go for the fight, despite everything.
Yeah.
Because it was a great warrior, and if he's not going for the war, So people will be laughing at him,
Yeah.
and it will be kind of a
Yeah.
shame
Yes.
for him.
Yeah.
So it will be better to die.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing his duty than to
Yeah.
live afterwards, and everyone would think he's a coward.
Exactly.
Because for a person who's been honoured, dishonour is worse than death.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good, because that was the whole point there. Krishna first of all gave the philosophy, but then he switched his tactic, and he started saying that, people will speak of you with infamy. He started to chide him in that way, and and as we said, for a person to be honoured, dishonour is worse than death. So it was great. That's a very good, important part to remember. After funny that we were getting through the whole chapter there, because we started off by the souls being indestructible, and then we talk. Krishna goes from the birth verses something like 20 to 30 or around those, maybe 30 to 35. He talks to Arjuna in those terms, and then he comes to then he takes a different tack when it comes to 240, 243, 244, and that's another very, very whole interesting part of the second chapter. And part of it is that example of the tortoise, but there's lots of other verses along the way which describe again. So that's good, yeah, no, that's good. So the remembering is also important. Anything else? Anything else there that comes to mind? Okay, well, just to see, because that's all actually.
That's the contents of the Gita summarized.
It is,
Everything is
yeah.
like a pact.
It is.
In second chapter. So.
It's which what?
Everything, all the Prabhupada lists Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga,
Yeah.
Bhakti Yoga.
Yes, he does.
So they're all there
Yeah.
presented.
So that's going to come up again. Then it's basically takes it over the third chapter with Karma Yoga. Okay, so we'll start to read from. We start with yourself, Surmi, and the third chapter. Have you got the third chapter there, Ashim? Yeah, great.
Arjuna said, just the verse.
Yeah.
Arjuna said, "O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligence is better than futile work."
We're going clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Going clockwise. Anti-clockwise. Sorry.
My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize this self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service.
Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection.
Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the mode of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment.
One who restrains the senses of action, but those whose mind dwells on sense objects certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender.
On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior.
Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work.
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage.
At the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent fourth generation of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be so happy by this yajna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation."
Jai, Hare Krishna. So, starting off with the Karma Yoga, intelligence, there's a context to the first verse because, as Dina pointed out, Krishna talked about the different types of yoga in the first chapter, but now he's saying, so Arjuna gets slightly confused at this point, and he says, "O Keshava, why do you want to engage me?" Hare Krishna. If you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work, so he gets a little confused there because, first of all, Krishna's telling him to get up and fight, and then Krishna gives him all this philosophy, and if you understand the philosophy about the soul, then you're already, that is what Krishna consciousness is about. So Arjuna momentarily gets into a little confusion. He said, "What? You're telling me to fight, and then another time you're telling me to meditate on this philosophy." So, and then he says, "If you think, do you want to engage me in this warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work?" So that's what he's saying to Krishna. And then again he explains, "My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me." So he wants to know, should he act as the warrior, or should he actually just study the philosophy? And then Krishna, and he says decisively, and Krishna actually very decisively tells him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand by empirical philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service." And then he says, not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So Krishna is going on basically to say that devotional service is the highest, basically. But then at the same time, he's also saying, though, that there isn't really any difference, because if one who knows what the philosophy is, then he's going to use that to perform devotional service. So in that sense, those who are wise don't make a differentiation between the two, because they understand that the philosophy which is explaining about the nature of the soul's relationship with Krishna, and Krishna's all-pervasiveness, Krishna's immense or unlimited power, then will automatically then take up the task of devotional service. That is the natural next step that one will take. So in that sense, both are very important. There's, for those who are students or want to study further, in the purport, Prabhupada then refers to two previous verses, and the purport of text number 3. He refers to text 39, and he refers to text 61. So Prabhupada is going back, and Prabhupada doesn't do that often. I noticed, specifically refer to previous verses. He may refer to them in general, but he doesn't refer specifically. But here he does, and he even talks about the purports in them as well, which is quite interesting. So 39 is, "Thus far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive result. O son of Prita, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works." So
the analytical knowledge was that discussion about soul being indestructible. This refers to analytical part, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that analytical knowledge is extremely important in this context, and the way that he explains it then in 39 again, just at that last, he says that when you when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of work because you know what you're doing. Does that make sense? You understand who you are in relation to the world and what the soul is, you know. Because as we know, the general tendency is to think that this body is the all in all, isn't it? We just think that this is me, everything, you know, that's happening now is in relation to me, and you know, I live in this time, and okay, people have died in the past, but this is the here and the now, and this is me, I'm here now. But Krishna is referring to a much deeper situation that's going on in the world, you know. And the way, again, I love the way he puts, or Krishna puts it, and also Prabhupada refers to it, is that you can free yourself from the bondage of works. And you'll see it coming up a little bit later as well in text number 5, where Krishna says, everyone is forced to act helplessly. We're forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. You know, does that mean that we don't have free will? Anyway, that's a big question. That people have tried to answer that question for millennia, but Krishna actually really decisively answers it. It's amazing on Krishna. But Krishna here he's referring to the fact that we are controlled by something which is called the modes of material nature, you know, or by nature. Like I don't know, you give a gross example, but like if somebody wants to use the toilet, like I mean, they can't not use it, like, you know, or if they do, they're going to end up in trouble, you know. So that's just one simple example how we're forced to act in nature, you know. But there's okay, I'll give you an even more serious one, and this is quite topical actually. What about when we're in the womb, you know? Are we able to make any choices at that point, you know? I don't want to get into pro-choice or not, but anyway, when you're in the womb, no, because nature is affecting not you, but your body. And there's an amazing section in the Bhagavatam, in the third chapter, third canto. I think it's verse. I don't want to say the verse, but it's the chapter towards the end of the chapter.
Yeah, chapters 30, 31.
Yes.
The movements of the living entities.
Yeah, very good. Did you study at that time when you were?
I did my Bhakti.
Oh, you're back to Bhagavad.
Yeah, first half of it.
Oh yeah, it was up to 6. Oh, is up to
the first 3. Half is first 3 cantos, so it's just the end of the course is like these chapters.
Okay.
It's great. Yeah.
So put that in your bucket list to do, folks. You know, go and do this. Bhakti Shastra, Bhakti Vaibhava. You'll be able to answer questions like that if you do. But the movements of the living entities, it is literally fascinating what's explained there, because it actually gives what the living entity is actually feeling in the womb, you know, and it talks about the very similar scientifically, whether it is or whether it isn't, I'm not that worried, but about the growth of the body when the soul enters the body as well. So, you know, we don't have, you know, this whole thing of the 8th Amendment, yes amendment, no amendment. Whatever they do is up to them. It's one sense, it's not totally our business because we just don't affect those situations anyway. But we know at least ourselves what is the actual scenario of the soul. And the soul, when it enters at the actual point of conception, basically, that's when the soul enters. And also what the soul has to experience as the body changes in there. Like it's like, people think, oh, it's lovely, oh, he's born, oh, it's wonderful. But it's not. Bhagavatam explains that it is an absolutely horrendous situation where you're locked up like this, you know, practically for up to 9 months. And Prabhupada explains that if you were to put a person in that situation who's conscious, they would go mad. They couldn't. And also that they generally go in and out of conscious all the time because they can't. But at the point of 7 months, the living entity then turns to Krishna and says, please help me in this situation, you know. But at birth, you forget it again, you know. It's just that you're forced down this, you know, this situation, you know, this tube, like, and you're, you know. It's no one. Do you ever see a baby coming out laughing? Hey. You know, generally the baby comes out very crying bitterly, but and also that the situation that they're in, they're with the umbilical cord to the mother, and they're being fed that way. But while they're in this amniotic fluid, there's also all other living entities in there as well, and those living entities are biting and biting and biting. And sometime Prabhupada said that, but all these are also our brothers and sisters. You know, he said that even these living entities that are there with us. He makes this point. I don't want to get. I mean, people sometimes they go to horror movies, you know, because they want to. They pay all this money, but actually they've been through a few, you know. And again, I'm not trying to knock. I mean, it's wonderful when a devotee is taking birth, and any living entity taking birth, in the sense that it's a wonderful opportunity. They can make progress in the spiritual life, but it's up to us, first of all, to make progress ourselves, and then to help other people get out of the situation. But I'm mentioning this because I'm talking about this big force of nature. It's like relentless force of nature. Do you know? We're taking birth and death like this. It's like it seems like we're there forever. Do you know, this lifetime or whatever? And even worse, we're going into animal body, insect body. You know, we're just going in like this. You know. This is material nature, you know. So, I'm sorry I'm painting a kind of a very dark, dense picture, but...
No, just realistic.
Okay, thank you. But our response to that is that is why we need to be extremely compassionate to all living entities. I know our good friend Mahatma Prabhu also talks about being also compassionate to ourselves. You know, he has so many great insights into the living entity, how the living entity is living in this world, and very wonderful to listen to some ways in which he actually really encourages people in their Krishna consciousness. It's quite exceptional, and so the point is that even though all those things are going on, it is still illusory. But it is hugely real, but it is illusory. I'm going to make one reference to people going tonight to see Niall Horan down in the 3 Arena. You don't know him, he's one of the famous band. They've written 900. Oh, no, it's good. You know it's Niall Horan. You heard it? No? Yeah, thank you, Laura.
What band?
It was called One Direction, and they sold 900 million records or hits or whatever, something like this, you know. But I was just coming up from the port, and I saw all these young people going down for the show, and I was thinking, come back the other way, the Bhagavad Gita is on tonight. But they didn't hear me. I don't know why. Or maybe I had the window pulled up when I was saying it. They didn't hear me. And, but it's in the search of happiness, you know. And he kind of, even though he talks about distress, you know, it's typical of these love songs are generally full of distress. My baby was there, and then she left me, and I'm very sorry, you know. But that is that. I suppose that it is the material world. But people still think, but there still might be some happiness there, you know. And so, but the point I'm trying to make is that the material nature is affecting us. Like it is affecting us, and the modes of material nature are there constantly. The modes of goodness, the modes of passion, and the modes of ignorance. And we're all born into the situation whereby we have a particular body, which is based on what we've done previously. But the point in Krishna consciousness is, it doesn't matter what modes of nature we're in or what body we're in. We can make huge devotional service straight away. And Prabhupada, in some of the sections here, he says that an honest street sweeper is better than a charlatan meditator. You know, so the important thing is to perform devotional service. And Our temple is an opportunity to perform devotional service. Basically, it is set up so that we can do that. We can plug into that whole momentum. Our home could be the same thing, but actually, the real thing is our consciousness should be like that. Our consciousness is an opportunity to serve Krishna all the time. And I was thinking that today. A simple example. I was writing out some notes from this. But when I was writing the notes, I'd like to write nicely this note. This is for Krishna. I'm trying to write this note. So that there's so many ways in which we can do just simple things in our life that we can do it as an offering to Krishna. It doesn't have to be that anybody else sees it. And someone says your real wealth is the things that are valuable which you can't see, not the things which you're trying to show people or whatever. But the real things which are valuable are in there, in your personal relationship with Krishna, which no one will ever maybe know. But we have all our relationship with Krishna, which we're trying to develop, and Krishna is reciprocating with us. So the class next Sunday's class will be very very interesting class. It'll be given by Pragosh Prabhu, and it is called "Karma is Our Best Friend." Now some people will say, "Well, karma, oh my God," because karma can be karma can be difficult. It can be difficult. And then how can you say it's our best friend? But it is. It's Krishna's method to talk to us. Sometimes we do need to be woken up, because we constantly come here, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and we've developed some very negative habits. We've got a habit of trying to be the enjoyer, of trying to forget Krishna. Does anyone here ever forget Krishna? It's unfortunate. It's in situations. Does anyone here ever remember Krishna? That's but actually, we're always working on the reverse. This is what we're doing. Never give in. It's the birthday of one of my original teachers, and one of the things he used to always say, is that where there is no way, Krishna will make a way. So even if you come to a kind of seemingly an impossible situation, but Krishna will make a way, which you can actually come out, because Krishna is he's very, very, he's there all the time, and he knows what we deeply want, and so he is working on this all the time. But sometimes it may appear that he's not there, and sometimes it is that we may get one karmic situation after another, which we don't like, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, why are you doing this to me, Krishna? But he knows what the medicine is. He knows what the degree of the medicine is that we need to make that actual move to Krishna. It's because that's really what we need to do. And it's one time it's described. I'm not an expert on this, but it's described like a love bite. It's something which, the Krishna. It's a little, nip or whatever, but it's only between very intimate people. So Krishna is. He knows that to the degree that we need to make to progress, and he wants us more than we can even imagine to go back, because it was. Many people were at Tulsi Priya's class in Inishrat. Do you remember the time when he pointed out to my good wife Ashani, and he said, "Krishna loves Ashani," and everyone, oh, Ashani's very special. But the thing she is, but he meant it that he also loves all of us in a specific way, that no one else can satisfy Krishna the way that we can satisfy Krishna. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that an amazing thing to think of? And I suppose I can explain from my own situations that, sometimes if I think that, or I feel that Krishna may, Krishna, that's one thing after another, after another, after another. Why is this? But I'm becoming more and more accustomed to thinking that, wow, this is Does anyone remember what a devotee thinks in those situations?
I deserve much worse.
I deserve much worse. That's what a devotee thinks. And so, you know, we're trying to change that consciousness around into that type of thinking. And the reason is because, I mean, it's also logical, because this is only happening over a very short time. Whereas, according to karma, we've been coming here for millions of lifetimes. Isn't that shocking, Oisin, isn't it? I mean, the fact, like, we know this one lifetime, but that we've been keeping on coming here all the time, like, you know. And not just to this planet, but into even other different places, you know, in the whole universal system.
The thing is, if everything is also happening at the same time, is that how it's happening? So even if you're going through cycles, if everything is happening in the now, is that?
Well, the cycles kind of, even in the word itself, means that you're coming back. You're constantly coming back, and in this sense, it's an illusory scenario. You know, it's an illusory scenario. All these times that we come here, it's still illusion, until we come to Krishna consciousness, until we come to consciousness of what's actually happening. See, most people are not conscious of it happening, you know, in the sense that they think they're just here for this time and that's it, you know. But if we can get into the knowledge and see through the ears and hear properly through the ears of what's actually happening, then we can actually get to understand how to act in the situation. I'm not sure if that's exactly answering your question, but
oh, it's not a question.
It's
just like,
yeah.
I do get that you don't deserve, you get what you don't. As in, like, you know, it's hard to feel worthy of this knowledge, but if everything is happening now from his perspective,
yeah. Oh yeah, it's meant to happen now.
Well,
yeah.
that's his grace.
Oh, it is. Yeah, very good. Yeah, that would be the correct understanding. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's. I just said that's
still coming from Krishna. Yeah.
Is that it? I don't know.
It is, but what we're doing, this is the whole point about free will, is we're putting ourselves in the position to get that knowledge. You know, we're trying to perform our activities so that we become qualified for the knowledge to happen. It's like Krishna's independent; he can give the knowledge anywhere at any time, but he generally gives it to somebody who he sees is eager to find out more and eager to serve him and eager to develop that love for him. Krishna then will give Dadadi Buddha Yogam to him. He'll give the knowledge within, whereby we can act even more positively within this pretty. It's a pretty heavy system. Like, you know, the laws of karma are pretty heavy. You know, in fact, it said that Daiviyesha Gunmaya, this divine energy of mind, Krishna says, is very difficult to overcome. But one who surrenders unto me can, he even uses the word, can easily cross beyond it, you know. So it is an extremely valuable and rare kind of scenario that has been offered, you know. They say that in a diamond shop you won't get that many customers because it's quite expensive. But usually you have millionaires queuing up at the diamond shop, but here the millionaire is the person who's eager to learn, you know, and who's sincere and serious. In other words, the person who's sincere and serious will act on the basis of the knowledge, you know, because that's what. Because when you get the knowledge, if you don't act on it, then you're not really serious, you know. But sometimes, don't worry about it. This is something I want to bring up as well. Sometimes we can't. Do you know why do you think we can't actually always act on the knowledge? Certainly, why would you say we can't always act on the knowledge? See, that's because you always do. I know.
Because of the nature force.
The force of nature, because we're born in a certain way because of our karma, and we have patterns of behaviour which, you know, are difficult to uproot initially. But the thing being, And I can say this from experience, that Krishna consciousness is so powerful that it not only can it uproot those kind of patterns, but it can make them they can uproot them completely, that they'll never appear again. Sometimes it happens that in some scenarios that you can stop some activity, but it's still kind of going on, whatever. But in Krishna consciousness, it is so strong that it can do that, and that's in the stages of Krishna consciousness. Like you have a little faith, you start to practice Krishna consciousness, you start to practice, and then you also you associate with devotees, exactly, and then you start to practice with the devotees, and then you start getting rid of the anartas. But then you come to a stage which is called steadiness, whereby they don't happen. Your anartas are starting to actually go away. Now, you may still there's some anartas may be so deep rooted that they sometimes some of those anartas they last for quite a long time even after that, isn't it? I'd have to go and study the exact, but
majorities.
Yeah, exactly. There's such a huge majority go at that point that that then you can actually start to practice more seriously then as well. So practicing seriously means that you keep trying. Even if you don't always succeed, you still keep on trying. And I saw Mahatma talk about that. Don't dwell. And I heard Duryodhana Guru speak about it quite a few times. And it's like, don't worry about if you kind of slip back a bit. But that's not as important. It's how you bounce back is the important thing. It's how you, and then you take up the process even more seriously. Because that will give you that's what Krishna wants to see. Because he even says it in Bhagavad Gita that even if somebody fails a little bit, he says if he's rightly situated, then he's not to be no one should say anything in a sense. Although that should never be abused, but if by any accidental dropping fall down, that then you still actually come back, and no one should ever speak negatively in that way. But I keep on coming back to this whole point about the power of nature, and because this comes up in this 5th verse. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he's acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. And now the whole this is called karma yoga. We're all going to be doing something. We can understand that because of who we are. And there's another thing that he says that one cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. So we should all understand that working is normal. We do that. But it's how we do that. And then in verse 3:9, Krishna says that work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this world. So there's another little insight into the workings of this nature, where we've got this body from previous lifetime, and it kind of it works according to how it's been set up from previously, according to one's previous karma. You're working in a certain way. Whether you like to be an administrator, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a worker in Tesco, or a worker in some store, whether you want to be a teacher or whatever it is, you're kind of your motives there. It doesn't matter what they are, but if you're doing your activity as a sacrifice for Vishnu, then what happens then is that you're not creating further karma. It's as simple as that. So this whole laboratory here, this spiritual place here, this temple, is where you perform your work in here, and there's no more reaction to it. It's a mystical place. You don't create. But temple is also in the heart in that sense. So it's not only just within the buildings. It means in your consciousness, and you create that situation wherever you are, whereby your work doesn't create bondage for yourself. Otherwise, as Krishna says, work causes bondage to this material world, and you're still in that whole mad machine, which is the material nature, you know. So, I don't know, am I getting across that point that we don't want to stay here performing activities in this world. In this world, we want to perform activities which are kind of mirror the activities we're going to be performing in the next situation that we're in, which is the spiritual world. So we want to practice spiritual activities now, so that when our body's getting so our practices are spiritual practices, and then at the point of death, the body's just about to croak it, but the soul is going, this is where I want to go. I'm out of here, you know. And the whole material world will keep on flicking around for millions of lifetimes, but we're not in it anymore. And now there's Jivan Mukhe Si Jiva Do Seva Swayameva Sparachi. You can also have the spiritual world even while in this material world. You know, that's the ideal standard that we have to reach. You know, by having the spiritual world here, so that when anybody comes towards the spiritual world, that they will actually suddenly they will remember, because that the spiritual world is our original nature. That's actually our situation, is in the spiritual world. So if we can create the spiritual, then people can actually absorb themselves in it. So I glossed through the verses as much as I could. I had lots of other things I could say about it, but that's basically what the first 10 verses are explaining. About the material nature, we have propensities based on from what we've done previously. So therefore we have to work, but whatever that work is, do it as a sacrifice for Krishna, and that will clear us from future karma, and then we'll get the development and the habit of acting in a spiritual way, even while we're in the material world. So is there any comments? Anyone likes to add anything or any questions?
It's very clear. Thanks.
That's good enough. Yeah.
So, work, text 9, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. So, can any work be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, or are there some restrictions regarding some works?
Some of our restrictions would say we have. This is show you how liberal Srila Prabhupada is even that. One of our restrictions is not to take any intoxicant. But, one time Prabhupada even said that even if a drunkard, even if he takes the alcohol and remembers Krishna while he's drinking it, you know, now this is not to be copied, but he said even if he remembers it, then that's even a step in Krishna consciousness, you know.
I want to add to that point.
Yeah.
Guinness is now vegan.
Oh. Would you? Yeah. That's right, yeah. I know.
You mean it wasn't before?
No. But it wasn't advertised until it became vegan.
Oh,
but there seems to be a lot of stuff moving that's quite positive at the minute as well, like veganism and stuff. It seems to be.
Yeah, I mean, funny, I was talking here about a little while ago that because even in the 60s when this philosophy came at the beginning, we were like considered to be completely, you know, weirdos because we were vegetarian, you know. It was like considered, what, you're vegetarian? No one was vegetarian basically. And we brought in all these things about cruelty to animals and you shouldn't do this. And now it's 30, 40 years later, then people are actually taking it on, you know, and they're really getting quite vociferous about it. And but one of the things though which we haven't done well on, which we would like to do, we wanted to do well, is that part of that though was to develop the cow protection as well, which is something which we haven't done successfully yet because it's quite an endeavour to do so. But veganism is good to a certain degree, but it's also, you know, cow protection is more important in that sense, so that our relationship with the animals is very important, and for many reasons. It's part of our understanding of the Vedic understanding that the relationship with Mother Bhumi and the earth and the cow and taking milk and so on. This is all part of the method in which we can actually make most advancement and so on. But it's something we haven't really practically put into action yet. Although we do have an ahimsa fund downstairs, where we do intend to in the future buy some land and start properly protecting cows. But it's kind of like a long-term thing that we have to work on. But yeah, so there is things happening though, definitely. Yeah. Although somehow, sometimes there's a kind of there's not. The only thing I have a problem with is that they're not recognizing Krishna, or they're not recognizing God, or there's a creator, or there's a source of it, Like a lot of us say, I'm great because I'm vegan, I'm not doing this, and I think, this is the way it should be done because,
So you think it's an ego trip?
I'm not saying in every case,
right.
but I do say, they should understand that this is Krishna's world, He doesn't want us to harm any living entity. Like even Prabhupada was talking about even the worm in the amniotic fluid with the baby. Prabhupada says, this is our brother and sister because we're in the same place, we're in the same mom, Prabhupada calls them his brother and her sister. So we were not even to harm any living entity anytime, and that's the standard, that's the gold standard, So, but the whole point about it is that it's all coming from Krishna. Like some people, they glorify the scientists because they've discovered something, or even the morality of the vegan person. But Krishna has already created the thing what they're discovering, and he's created the brain which is discovering it. So we're not recognizing that this is all Krishna's, and like in one instant Krishna brings it all back into himself, and that's only a portion of himself. That's the material world, and so the problem is they're not recognizing, where they're getting their, good ideas from, or what's behind them, and if they live properly, as well, according to the Vedic system, or then this would happen automatically. There would be no harm to any animals anywhere. All animals would be protected perfectly, and they're not realizing that that's the system that Krishna set up. But definitely it is positive, and it's ironic for me to see it because some vegans are quite militant and they're quite strong. But it reminds me 30, 40 years ago, some of the devotees, they were really stood out, and they were really bringing a revolution, basically. And you can see the revolution is a revolution in consciousness, and it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual consciousness. Whereas some of the revolutions tend to be just, it's kind of like it's a material revolution, and they think that they can, solve everything by being vegan, but they're not. They're going to die as well, and they're going to take birth again, So it's like they're not really solving the problem in that sense. Even if everyone becomes vegan at the point of death, they're going to go into another body, unless they're doing it as a service unless they recognize what their situation is in relation to this.
I think, I don't know if this is right or not, but like it seems like it's on the path, and authority has been misplaced so much. There's so much confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's, can't see the forest but for the trees.
Yeah. No, that's it. In Kali, as you said, authority has been lost, and that's where Maya strikes as well. That's because Maya. I
don't think authority's been lost. I think it's there, but it's just we need to take responsibility.
Wow, very good. Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. You know, we do need to take responsibility, proper responsibility, but you know, but we need to become proper authorities. Do you know? We need to know what authority means. So, in other words, that if we take responsibility, proper responsibility for Krishna, you know, as a servant of Krishna, because the highest authority is the biggest servant of Krishna. That's the highest authority, is the person who serves Krishna the most, you know.
I saw something walking down Dame Street. It was the Pub Loch Maharan, the Irish letter to the British government at the Revolution for the East Rising, and it was in English, Irish, Russian, Polish, Islamic, and Chinese. And the first sentence of it was Irish men, Irish women, to stand up for the freedom in the name of God and her country. It was there is always pointers there when you're looking for them. I hadn't noticed this, and it was actually the Irish one that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah.
But there does seem to be always within the unconscious the search for the conscious.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that a lot of the original fathers of the different nations, they had in mind that they wanted to do it for God, and even that particular revolution had a very God seemed to be God influenced, all right, but there is at the same time the whole idea of as we know, Prabhupada says we can use nationalism, you know, in the service of Krishna, in the service of God. But it's very difficult to. It still is an inferior kind of identity, identifying yourself as Irish. So not Irish. Could have been Japanese in their last life, or it could have been British in their last life, you know. And it's very difficult to, you know, you have to kind of extract yourself from that whole scenario to really get a real understanding of you know, of a spiritual nature of it. I mean, at the same time, Prabhupada would often quote on the dollar bill in America, "In God we trust." You know, it said. And Prabhupada often quoted this, you know, are you trusting in God or are you trusting in the dollar? You know what I mean? Kind of, but no, but he would also make other references to that, the dollar bill. Do you remember what it was? Or
Prabhupada's challenge was, you say in God we trust, but if I ask you what is God, you cannot tell me. Like they have no knowledge of God. So it's like hypocrisy.
No, I totally get that. And that's what I thought when I originally reread the Constitution, but they refer to God as her. Yes.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So yeah, if you read
I see what you're saying there.
So
yeah.
They refer to God as her, and the country and the country is her. Yeah, it's definitely worth a read.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know that there has been, you know, church-state thing going on, but clearly there was undertones of understanding of that was not the will. If you see what I'm saying, like, it's in plain sight, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not happening. But I just thought it was. It's worth looking at.
No, definitely. Yeah, no, definitely have a look at it now. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have a look at an Irish one like that.
Because it seems. I don't know. I was also looking when you look at the Irish flag and the Indian flag, there seems to be like a kind of.
Same colours, except the chakra is missing.
Yeah, no, we had remember that course we had here that was by Yadavendu. He was explaining with the similarities between Sanskrit and Irish. There's a lot of similarities, like, and yeah, the understanding is that a lot of nations there was only one state in the world at one point, which was the and that's where, like, Sanskrit is the mother of all languages. It comes from Sanskrit. It's the original language basically. It's understood like all around the world, and it's like that. So yeah, that's the similarities are there. Listen, thank you for those questions. It's getting very, very enlivening, and so yeah, just conscious of the time here because we've went from verses 1 to 10. Did anyone get time to read them before we came? Did? Yes. Somebody's nodding their head. That's good. This is a good practice. Read them and read the purport as well. Do you know? If you get the time, read it. It's only 1.5 verses a day for the next 7 days. You've done it, but it's good to. You'll be surprised. Let me just explain to you because I'm giving the class here now. But if you have this book and you get actually absorbed in it, you're going to hear Prabhupada speak it. Because Prabhupada is not. He's non-different from his books. So. And just as like we're reading a lot of those books now, Vishaka and Shabasundar and all those books about Prabhupada, you really he's here as well. I mean, you get a whole understanding of who Prabhupada is and how he's he just has he's a pure devotee. He's very Sam Mahatma Durlabha, you'll never see people like that. And Prabhupada is freely available to us in this way. And it's a golden opportunity. So if you can take that little time with these books, I know Lauren sometimes gets a bit of time, don't you, Lauren? You get a bit of time with the books. It's gold. It's like putting gold in your bank account. It's real, and that's the currency that's required. That when Krishna sees all this devotees accruing all this currency, this lowlium, then he'll give the understandings, And Prabhupada will come and speak to you personally. That's how powerful Prabhupada is. It's not that he suddenly is not there anymore because he left his body in 1977. He's here. He's speaking very clearly, and it's a great opportunity to come in contact with Prabhupada. It's a personal that Lord Chaitanya personally sent here to help everybody in Kali Yuga. And just the final thing I'd say, Prabhupada so often mentioned it. He said that if you can give this to others, that Krishna will be so happy if you can give this message to others. And we're going to have the film, hopefully, of Prabhupada coming very soon. A new film made. It's showing in Dublin. Hopefully in April. We're going to have the date. And there's a 6-hour kirtan here on the 14th of April. Tell anybody that you can to come to it. Just because we're going to have a kirtan. And if you have a trombone or anything like that, bring it along. But but if you can, but it's going to be it's a musical festival. Chanting kirtan. We'll just sail to the spiritual world with this. And Prabhupada says that your love for me will be shown by how much you can cooperate as well to keep this institution ready, do this whole place ready. So when I've gone, that's how our love will be shown to him. So keep loving. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.